Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If I could please get a vote to go into closed session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings under general laws of Rhode Island, RIGL 42-46-5, A1, A2, A4, A8, and A9.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good evening, everyone. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order, and if we could please do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, if we could remain standing, please, to do a moment of silence for Peggy McGeever on her passing. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, awesome. At this time, could I please have a vote to seal the minutes of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And no votes were taken in executive session tonight. Our first item is the recognition of one of our fine outstanding principals. Mr. Frank Galligan received, I don't know if everybody knows this, but he received new Principal of the Year award for this year. And we'd like to applaud you for your hard work and dedication to the kids of Warwick. Yeah, sure.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent, members of the school committee. So as Chairwoman said, Mr. Galligan was nominated. The last time we were up here, Mr. Galligan was nominated for the first year Principal of the Year, and we celebrated that. And then a short time after that, unbeknownst to him, he actually won. And so we had a small celebration at Warwick Next School where the kids participated. Again, Judy Cobden was at Warwick Next School for the presentation, but I know many of you were working and couldn't be there. So here's what the kids presented to Mr. Galligan. So I'll try to be in the middle here. M is for the many hours Mr. Galligan devotes to the students, staff, students, and families of Warwick Next School. R is for the relationships that Mr. Galligan has built within his community and his partners. G is for the giant piles of paperwork that Mr. Galligan works on every day to make Warwick Next School run smoothly. A is for awesome, just because that's what he is. L is for late nights that Mr. Galligan works to be sure everyone is safe and having fun at school. L is for lots and lots of meetings that Mr. Galligan goes to so he can learn about ways to make Warwick Next School a better place than it already is. I is for incredible at communicating because Mr. Galligan writes the best newsletters to everyone. G is for great. Mr. Galligan is great at listening. He's always willing to listen and hear both sides of the story. A is for amazing things that Mr. Galligan has done excuse me, in such a short time here at Warwick Next School. And N is for neat and organized because no one, not even Mrs. Cousineau, is as neat as Mr. Galligan. Congratulations, Frank.
Before you go. I was fortunate to be there, and all the letters, it was really done cutely. Each child was picked, and they came in with the letter and read whatever line it was. And then we also learned, because it was all done surprise, that he almost came in dressed as Pikachu for the day. And he would have been surprised by a whole room of people as Pikachu, which I'm still waiting to see. So congratulations again. That was great. Next, we move on to public comment on agenda items only. As it states, there's a limit, 1 per comment. Individual comments respectfully request to be limited to 2 minutes and not to exceed the whole period of 30 minutes. At the end of our meeting, we have another public comment for non-agenda items. So we can do public comment now. If so, please line up.
Hello, I'm Darlene Netco, lifelong resident of Warwick, homeowner, taxpayer, voter, teacher of 34 years, high school English, 32 years in Warwick, and president of the Warwick Teachers Union. I'm commenting on the resolution that you have to send to Rhode, and I applaud you for this resolution. I think every school committee in the state should also pass this resolution or a similar one and send Rhode a clear message that the LEAs, the local education authorities, are done with unfunded mandates. We have enough fiscal problems in this city, in this school district, thanks to the city. We don't need any more from Rhode, and these mandates are ridiculous. While there is value in learning a foreign language in school, making every high school graduate take 2 years of it is unreasonable. Our schools offer the foreign languages. If students want to take them in order to get into a college that requires at least 2 years, then we have those courses for them to take. We don't need to force every student to take the foreign language at the expense of subjects such as phys ed, art, music, and so on. Forcing students to take 2 years of the foreign language may also negatively impact Career Center students. They take 3 periods worth of time to fulfill the requirements of their trades. Many of our students leave with certificates in those trades and can go right out into the workplace and get a job. And the Common Core standards that Rhode Island adopted and that all of the districts follow are for college and career readiness. Too often we forget the career part, and it is unfair and unreasonable of Rhode to continue to throw more and more requirements on students who don't need to take those classes. Furthermore, those requirements, as I said, amount to unfunded mandates that the districts then are forced to fund. So again, I was very happy to see this resolution. I hope it passes, and I hope you spread it around to all of the other school committees in the state, because Rhode has overstepped one too many times, and the commissioner and Rhode need to get a message that the districts aren't going to put up with it anymore. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any others for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Langell. I'm a new resident to Warwick. My daughter will be at Warwick Neck in the fall. So I'm very excited about the award that you just got. And really, I more or less have questions which I look forward to hearing with your discussion later tonight about the resolution which was just mentioned. And my questions are more around the 3 items that were specifically outlined: African American Studies, Civics, and Holocaust Genocide. And so when I'm listening to your conversation, the reason I'm mentioning this is because those are 3 really important items that I would hope we're already covering in our curriculum here in Warwick. And if we aren't, I'm hoping that that's something that we can, that would be a value that we would have in making sure that we're talking about history and social science, and that we're doing it in an intellectually honest, rigorous way appropriate at all age levels. So my question, and I'll be just when I hear your conversation, is why those 3 items were mentioned in relation to, because it sounds like some of the other issues are a little bit different related to the graduation requirements, which I understand have been postponed until 2027. So I'm looking for just clarity in your discussion about what exactly the proposal is addressing. Is the proposal addressing these graduation requirements, which I understand have been postponed, or is your proposal addressing these 3 agenda items, or those 3 issues listed as examples? So that's my question. That's what I'm looking to hear more about in your conversation later, with just the commitment that I know that we have to making sure that we're, teaching our history accurately, and that we're not afraid to talk about important, complex, nuanced subjects at every level of education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? Okay, it doesn't appear to be any other one else. We'll move away from public comment and go to recommended actions. Approval of minutes of public sessions, April 12th, 2022, April 26th, 2022, and April 28th, 22.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of warrants from May 10th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And approval of transfers, May 10th, 2022.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Announcements on personnel is presented. Mrs. Ruggieri.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the school committee. Tonight I have several retirements to go before you for a vote. I have Kathy Buckley, a social studies teacher at Pilgrim High School, effective April 11th with 31 years of service. Maria Sanda, world language teacher at Winman, effective August 31st with 26 years in Warwick and 5 years in the state, giving her a total of 31 years of service. Jean Strauss, a kindergarten teacher at Oakland Beach, effective June 20th with 30 years of service. Tana Carroll, English teacher at Tollgate High School, effective June 20th, with 21 years in Warwick and 5 years in the state, to total 26 years. Arlene Carmesino, kindergarten teacher at Scott Elementary, effective June 20th, with 28 years of service. And Robert Kissinger, a custodian at Wyman, effective June 18th, with 20 years of service. So again, I would like to thank them all for their service to the students of Warwick and wish them well in their retirement. And I do need a vote on that.
I move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'd also like to say, on behalf of the school committee, thank you to all these members that have put in so many years of dedication to our students in the city. Thank you. Are any of them here? Can we clap for any of you? We still will anyways.
Thank you. I do have 2 resignations also requiring a vote. Brian McDonald, the Assistant Principal of Climate and Culture at Winman Middle School, effective April 29th. And Sarah Zane Villanueva, the art teacher at Tollgate, effective June 18th.
I move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And I have no personnel announcements beyond the coaches as presented in executive session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have donations and correspondence. We received a nice offer from a Joseph Soleri. He is going to purchase the home plate and pitcher's mound covers for Warwick Vets to replace the existing covers. He's the owner of Bo's Billiards, Inc., and he's donating $890.98, which cost of the mats. And he will be having his name on that, along with a very positive message to our athletes at Warwick Vets. So We want to thank him very much for this. We'd love to take any donations like this that we can get, because everything is just expensive. So thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Ricks, for facilitating all of this. We don't have to take a vote on that, do we? Okay, next we move on to the adoptions of policies. Dr. Cecil, the first one is GBEB, Staff Conduct, first reading.
Yes, good evening, School Committee Chair and members. We have first readings tonight of 3 policies and second readings of 3 policies. This first policy is new. It's GBEB, Staff Conduct. Would you like me to read it? It's not that
Sure,
long.
it's short.
It's an expectation of the Warwick School Committee that employees conduct themselves in a professional manner that not only reflects credit to the school district, but also sets forth a model worthy of emulation by students. Consequently, employees shall ensure that their dress, conduct, written and spoken, communication, attitude, and interactions with others demonstrate an appropriate level of professionalism at all times. Staff members must conduct themselves in a manner that's consistent with the mission of the district. Interactions between staff members must be based on mutual respect, and any disputes will be resolved in a professional manner. Essential to the success of ongoing school operations and the instructional program are the following specific responsibilities: prompt and consistent attendance at work, support and enforcement of school committee policies and school rules in regards to students, diligence in promptly submitting required reports, care and protection of school property, assuring the safety and well-being of students, appropriate behavior and interaction between all employees, appropriate behavior and interaction between employees and supervisors, and appropriate behavior and interactions between employees and students. That is the first read that we are requesting approval.
Move approval. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next one is JBA, Individuals with Disabilities, under Section 504. Again, Dr. Cecil?
Yes, we currently have a policy, JBA, that's was headed as reasonable accommodation of students with disabilities. So we are actually going to remove the existing wording because it's outdated, hadn't been updated since the 1999 was the last time this policy was touched. So we are updating the language from, starting fresh and renaming it Individuals with Disabilities under 504. The essence of the policy remains the same, but it's all current language, with thanks to Mr. Hennius for providing that to us. I'm not going to read it. It's very lengthy, like 9 pages or so, but suffice to say it's legal language that's good. Just take our word for it, it's good. So I'm requesting approval of a first read.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is JE, Student Attendance. Dr. Cecil again?
Yep, this is also a first read of an existing policy. We're just adding a couple of words of new language and refreshing or updating some of the old language. So in this policy, anything that's underlined is new language. So under the first paragraph, we are calling extenuating circumstances. We're adding the language excused absences. So we're just clarifying that's what that means. Every time we had the word quarter, we've now added the word trimester, because that didn't exist at the last time that we updated this policy. So we've added the word trimester in several places where that applies. We've also added the language, all absences, excused or unexcused, shall be recorded on a student's record. Excused absences will not count against a student when making academic decisions. We just wanted to clarify that and add that to the policy. We added at the elementary section of this policy that when 5 or more absences would be brought to not just the school nurse, but it could also go to targeted team. And instead of going to an attendance administrator, it could go to the principal and or targeted team. And that is all of the changes that we're requesting approval of this first read.
I move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The next is ECA, Buildings and Grounds Safety and Security, second reading.
Yep, so now we're on to second reads. You've all had a chance to read, discuss, and now coming around second time and requesting approval for adoption.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And EBCF, Pandemic/Epidemic Emergency, second reading.
Correct. Requesting approval for adoption of this policy that just pulls together all the language from all the different places we've written language around pandemics and epidemics and put into one spot.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the last one is JO, Student Records, second reading.
Yes, thank you. This was the updated language that talks about FERPA and student privacy rights. Second read, requesting approval for final adoption.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Cecil.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes,
Just,
sure.
Dr. Cecil, I want to thank you. Policy work is dull.
I love
To
it.
me personally.
Is that
I'm not-
something- are you
I know
talking
how
about-
important policy is, but the work and the language and the wording, I just want to thank you for all of the work you've done over the years on policy. Our policy manual is about a foot thick, and I know it's very common among school committees that updating that policy manual is yeoman's work and it never ends. So I just wanted to thank you for all the work that you've put in, as well as the policy subcommittee.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Testa. I find it very interesting and enjoy it.
So do I.
Okay, now on to new business. Number 1, discussion, presentation, the Extended Day Academies Round 2. And I believe we're also going to do discussion and presentation of the social emotional learning and discussion and presentation of graduation requirements. So we'll do all 3 of those and we'll go out into the audience. Thank you. Presenting this is Dr. Schultz and Mrs. Cousineau.
No? Oh. Keep going, keep going. Oh, are they at the bottom? There we go. All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Danbrook, and members of the school committee. We are here tonight to show you a very brief presentation from our Extended Day Academy Round 2. We'll do the elementary one first and then the middle school one. We had a few changes from extended day round 1 to round 2. In this round, we had 13 out of 13 schools, which was up from 11. We had approximately 440 students, which was up from 288 students. We had 54 teachers sign up from 38 teachers. We did a 6-week program this time instead of 4 weeks, which was the teachers had asked us to do that. And this time we included social emotional learning, math, and ELA or reading. We were able to get out to not quite all 13 this time. I tried to target the schools that we hadn't visited last time for photos. So here we see, this looks like Scott Elementary School in a couple of those photos, but the kids are doing all hands-on, manipulatives, collaboration, cooperation. They were really enjoying it. We did the survey at the end of the time span again this time, and we had 31 responses at last check. And the little kiddos filled out, the littles as we call them, filled out a paper survey. And you can see the a lot column is higher than any other column. The club helped me to learn. I enjoyed the club. I think I'm doing pretty good in reading, and I think I'm doing pretty good in math. The grades 3 through 5 filled out a Google form. And again, you can see the first column is higher than some of the other columns with 149 responses. Enjoyed the club, worked well with classmates, gained some ELA skills, gained some math skills, and would you participate again? And this was from the students' voices. The teachers, we had 21 responses to date at the time that I put this presentation together. Again, in the yes column, I enjoyed teaching this course. I mostly taught ELA, I mostly taught math. I thought I had sufficient time to plan my lessons, and I worked in small groups. We also asked them if they felt they had adequate materials. That was unanimously yes. We did ask the question if they would like us to provide some curriculum materials, and that was an overwhelming no. They're very happy with what they shared amongst themselves and what materials they found, so we decided to leave well enough alone and let them be the experts. We did purchase, with the help of the math interventionists and Dawn Manchester, we did purchase math by the book materials, which was in the Warwick Beacon a couple of months ago, and we did have just about half of the teachers using those materials, which are amazing. And then 19 of them said if we were going to have a round 3, they would be interested. I did have quite a few emails, excuse me, in regards to round 3, but we told them that we would start earlier next year. So some improvements and some feedback. Again, they wanted the class size to be lower than 12, so we lowered it to 8. They wanted it higher than 4 weeks, so we increased to 6 weeks. They wanted students targeted by need, so we looked at our iReady data from the winter in January, and we chose students who were 1 year behind, figuring we could close that gap. And then communication. So most of the teachers sent home weekly updates about the skills that their students were working on, and the families could support those skills at home. We did ask the parents for some feedback as well. We had 81 responses to date when this was tallied up. Did your child learn anything new? Yes. Did your child connect with their teacher? I think for me, this was one of my favorite ones because most of the students got their own classroom teacher, as the kids would call it. They got their real teacher, and they already had a rapport with them, so I think that the extended day went very well because of that. Did your child enjoy the club? We had 66 yes. And then would you join the club again? And it was 74 of the parents said yes. We did ask the principals as well. We had overwhelming that they thought it benefited students and that they would be happy to host it again as well, the ones that had responded. And the family feedback was, the positive feedback is on the left. They think it's a fantastic idea. They loved having their child be with their real teacher, and they think that it really helped their student improve their confidence level. And 2 things that they were looking for next time, could we please, please, please have it more than 2 days a week? And a few of the parents were looking for some improved communication. Some of the teachers only did it at the end of the program, and we had asked them to do it weekly. And then the last one, hold on. Oh, They would like more after-school opportunities as well, which I know a lot of the schools are doing right now. I know Sherman and Hoxie and a number of the schools are doing after-school clubs and doing karate and all kinds of things going on at the school level now. So I'm pretty sure we fulfilled that one as well.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Cousineau. So I'm going to be presenting about the middle school extended day academies. For round 2, we decided to focus solely on the middle school because we had more of an outpouring of support at that level for people signing up to teach it specifically. And underneath this program, we had 50 students that took part in it. It was 6 weeks, like Mrs. Cousineau said, up from the 4 weeks. And this time, I opened it up to every subject area. So we had representatives from math, English, language arts, science, art, and robotics. So kids got a little more exposure this time to different things. And so when we did our survey data with the students, you can see that it's very positive that students 100% want to participate again. I love that. And they learned a lot of math this time, more than just English, and they worked well with their classmates and enjoyed working with the teacher, which I think is, just like Patty said, is really, really important to have that connection, especially now in this weird place that we are in, where it's kind of post-COVID, but still in COVID. So it's very important to have that positive relationship with others. And just like Mrs. Cousineau reported, the teachers did say that they had adequate materials and planning time. Again, they don't really want something set. I think that takes away some of the creativity in this type of program where they have a little bit of freedom after school and some flexibility. And they were able to do small group instruction and differentiation, which is really important. That's part of our goal under the vision of a graduate, is to have students working together, collaborating, having great student discourse, and small groups really help facilitate that. And 100% said that they would sign up again. I'm sorry to stand up, but we can't see the bottom of the screen. The feedback is that late buses would help, and I can't see the last one. All right, here are some, yes, thank you. The big one. Not all students this time, thank you, were struggling learners. So we did target struggling learners the first time. This was more of an after-school enrichment program. Teachers were able to invite whoever they felt would most benefit, and so we had all different styles of learning happening, different types of students this time. You can see them working together collaboratively, which is wonderful. At Windman, they did a huge service project. Thank you to Mrs. Kochak, the science lead there, and they were able to clean up the woods. You can see they did landscaping, carpentry. It was just a huge project that kids really got to dig in and help develop a vision for what they wanted to do in this area kind of between Windman and Tollgate that isn't often used. So you can see them cleaning up, which is really heartwarming. Yeah. And then at Vets, they were able to do an art club, and you can see one of the photography students really took it seriously, and she kind of went off on an amazing tangent and took some pictures, had fun with some of the apps that we have, and you can see them working in that capacity as well, which I love to see. All right, I think that's about it for me.
That's it.
And now it's time for Mrs. Cousineau.
The third presentation that we have for you tonight is to, thanks to Ms. Kristen DePreet Koopman and one of the other parents at Wyman School who spoke last month. We were able to talk to the superintendent and chairperson, Chairwoman Cobden, to put SEL practices at the elementary level on the agenda tonight. So this is just a very brief overview of some proactive strategies that we're using in the elementary schools in regards to SEL practices, which is social emotional learning. We do use the CASEL standards, so this was cut and pasted right from the CASEL standards, and I did ask Mrs. Murray, she was here a month or so ago presenting the Panorama platform. She did help put this presentation together, so thank you to her for that. So I'm just going to read the first sentence. SEL is like a balanced diet. It's nutritious and necessary for everyone to stay healthy. It promotes mental wellness by helping all students and adults build healthy relationships, better understand their emotions, cope with stress, and ask for help. But SEL cannot and should not replace mental health services for students who need them. So again, the next couple of slides are just some different things that we have in place already that most of the public is not aware of. There is a PART team PART, Participate, Assess, Respond team at each elementary school that we use during a crisis situation. It does consist of the principal, the school social worker, the psychologist, and any of the teacher assistants. There are actually some of them here in the building with us tonight. All members of the PART team have been CPI trained. CPI stands for Crisis Prevention, from the Crisis Prevention Institute, and it is a package deal for practices for de-escalation. And we all have to be trained in CPI strategies. So if we had a student who was very dysregulated, the PART team would be sent to that classroom to help de-escalate the student. Sometimes the student is taken to a different location, or sometimes the class is taken outside and the student has a chance to de-escalate in the classroom. So it all depends. It's on a case-by-case situation, but it is a practice for de-escalation. Another thing that we have, and Dr. Cecil mentioned it in one of our policies this evening, is all elementary schools have a targeted team. It's interchangeable with a problem-solving team. The team, again, is comprised of the principal, social worker, psych. This time, the math and reading interventionists are on board, and the special education resource teachers. They do meet weekly, and they dive deep into student data, and it not only includes academic, but behavioral and social emotional data as well. It's about an hour a week. Sometimes, I know at Warwick we had to expand it to an hour and a half if we had a lot of data to dig into. And we would look to how to support our students and families. A couple of examples I thought of was if we were having a lot of trouble in the cafeteria, I might talk to some of the parents, and I might have a lunch bunch with some of the kids who needed a little coaching or some social skills in that area. We did a social skills group. Sometimes they're done whole class, sometimes they're done small group. But we even look at attendance, and if we notice that there was a family really struggling with attendance, we sometimes would just give them a call. How can we help? I have bought alarm clocks, I've gone out to people's houses, I've called them with wake-up calls, so really whatever it takes to help get your kiddo to school is what we're all about. As we talked last month, the responsive classroom approach has been something near and dear to our heart for about 5 years now. In year one, we had about 60 slots. We had 47 teachers and staff participate. We went up to 51 the following year. The third year COVID hit, so our training was canceled. We went to 28 in the end of the COVID years, and this year will be year 5 for us, where, again, thanks to Dr. Cecil and her wonderful grant writing, we were able to move from 30 slots up to 60 slots. And what we're going to do with those 60 slots this year is every elementary principal is going to be trained. There were 2 that were previously trained, but they jumped right on board, and they're going to be trained again with their new team, and they're bringing 3 people from their faculty. There'll be 2 days of training, 6-hour days, 2 in June and 2 in August, so it'll be a 24-hour training over 4 days. And then each school will have a responsive classroom team at the building level, and we'll do a lot of work with them every month. Responsive classroom is much more than just morning meeting. It's all about teacher language. It's about student choice and voice. It's about closing circle at the end of the day with reflection. So we want to get all those parts and pieces in there. To date, we have approximately 126 teachers trained out of 195, so we're at about 65%. This is the Panorama platform. Mrs. Murray had presented with some other folks, and Ms. Pinero had presented a month back or so. And thank you to the school committee for approving that. It pulls key student information in one spot. I think that's what we're most excited about. So at Targeted Team, we'll have this all at our fingertips in one platform. Right now, we go to a couple of different zones to look for this information, but it is kind of nice. This is a fake student, Crystal Gomez, on the right-hand side. And some of those colors and all of those squares mean different things. So the coursework is the first set of squares, her attendance, her behavior, and her social emotional learning. So, and then we can send out reports right to the teachers. So again, we're really looking forward to training our principals and moving forward with this in the fall. And Mrs. Murray has also been working with the psychologists and social workers K through 12. So some of Bill's secondary folks are on board as well. They do monthly communities of practice, or COPs. They collaborate with one another. They're pooling their resources together. One brief example is that they're building a library of resources to share with one another around important topics such as bullying and student engagement. So if there's a problem at one school, they can call somebody else, or they can just look in their slide decks or wherever they have shared it, and we're putting things together. An example would be the Julia Cook books. Nope, they're not cookbooks. The author is Julia Cook, and she writes social emotional books. One of my favorite elementary ones is called My Mouth is a Volcano. And we read that for our friends who have trouble raising their hand when they have something to share. But Julia Cook is a great resource, and a couple people didn't know about it. So those are the fun things we get to share at these meetings. And then we're very, very excited with the help of Cameron Kadek. We will be putting together a public event on Wednesday, May 25th at the Warwick Public Library at 6 p.m. We're going to provide parents the opportunity to gather for some resources, speak directly to our mental health professionals, learn how to best support their child's mental health and well-being as you recognize your own warning signs, and even more. We're putting together, I think there's a link on there somewhere, there is a flyer that has gone out. But we are putting together more speakers. I think Thrive Behavioral Health will be there and people like that. So we're looking forward to doing this more, but this is our first attempt at this, and we're very excited.
Dr. Schultz.
There you go.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. This evening, myself and Dr. Schultz will be presenting proposed graduation requirements in Rhode Island.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. So as you can see here, and I know there were some questions, and I will address them at the end. So thank you to the parent who came up before. I thought those were really great questions. And thank you for taking the time to look over the slide deck beforehand. So right now we're in the timeline. Back earlier in the school year, the proposed requirements were outlined, and public comment began on March 7th. They've had many sessions at the state level for public comment, and the final day was actually today. And this summer, the proposed requirements are going to be released. They might have to amend them, and so we're presenting what is proposed tonight.
Currently, what has been proposed is 20 total credits to graduate. 4 credits in ELA, 4 credits in mathematics, including Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, 3 credits in science, including 2 lab courses, 3 credits in history and social studies, 2 credits in modern world language, 1 additional college preparatory credit, 3 credits in art, computer science, and PE. This is interesting considering that there's state law for PE and health that would probably limit that to 1 available credit for art and computer science.
Thank you, Mr. McCaffrey. Students at the CATC, our Career and Tech Center, have a slight change. So right now, they've had to add a couple flex credits. You can see the 2 changes. I'll go back so you can see it comparatively. So for students who are not in the Career and Tech Center, they have to take 4 credits in mathematics. And we have 3 credits now for the Career and Tech students, and then 2 college prep credits. That way it's a flexible credit, so they can fit more of the Career and Tech side into their day to help ease the burden of scheduling for those students and allow more students to take Career and Tech courses, which is our goal.
One of the changes to our current program, you need 22 credits to graduate, 4 credits in ELA, 4 credits in mathematics, including Algebra 1, 2, and Geometry, 3 credits in science, physical science or physics, biology and chemistry, 3 credits in history, social studies, and a 0.5 of that is civics, 1 credit in technology. Currently there's 0 credits in modern world language needed right now, 1 credit in fine arts, 2 credits of PE health. The 4 remaining credits for electives. 2 or more of the proposed requirements would be 0.5 for financial literacy. And finally, we have a senior capstone project.
Yes, and in addition, there is a need for students to take some type of state test, whether that be SAT, PSAT, or the NGSA, which is the science test for the state. And so other proposed changes, and you already mentioned this, Mr. McCaffrey, is that we're adding a financial literacy course, which is scheduled for next year. And the class of 2027 must take civics. I know that was one of the questions, and so yes, it is in our program of studies, but this is something that the students will have to do when they graduate in 2027.
Concerns over the proposed regulations affords little time for planning, staffing, supplies, and facilities needed. 2 world language credits. Not all students may be interested in the necessary staffing and funding is difficult to find. Requiring computer science may take away from fine arts programs such as music, arts, technical education areas. These requirements have not been added to the basic education plan. District's capacity may be lessened to meet other proposed requirements such as Holocaust studies, African American studies, civics, and financial literacy due to time and funding.
Thank you, and I'll just comment on the last X there, because that was one of the questions from one of our parents. Currently, we do offer a class on Holocaust and Genocide studies. It's been changed. It used to be called Studies of War, and now we're morphing into a new program for next year. We currently don't have African American studies per se. We do cover some of the basic tenets in other courses, but we don't have a actual course with that title just yet. Civics, I mentioned before, we do have that, and financial literacy is coming for next year, so that all students will be taking that for 0.5 credit. All right, and I don't know who that person is, but she looked really friendly. So I think that's it for our presentation. That's it. Thank you.
So on the first presentation, the Extended Day Academies Round 2, do we have a discussion on that?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr.
Thank you.
Testa.
Thank you, Mrs. Cousineau and Dr. Schultz and everyone else involved. You know, it's encouraging to see how we expand it and how we learn from what we did, and then we change and make adjustments in response to feedback, which is good. The communication with families, to me, that's most critical. If I'm the mother or the father or the guardian of the student, and they're doing this, someone's got to tell me what's going on so I can help reinforce it at home. That's ultra critical to me. And the only question I have really is, this is funded through ESSA funds, right? We're using our ESSA funds because this is what they were designed to be used for. So, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Adams, please.
Hey, I'd like to extend the same thanks that Mr. Testa has for you as well. And the only question I have is very similar to the one I had last time we went over this, except I guess instead of teachers, it's students this time. For the grades 3 to 5, in terms of the participate again, you have 149 responses and a little bit more than 20% said no. Do we have like feedback from them as to why, or is it just like just one for them, or?
No, there wasn't really any reasoning behind it. I think, again, from the feedback, they wanted more than 2 days a week, and some of them were some scheduling things because there were no buses or late buses or anything like that, so they had to make arrangements for their pickup for their child.
Okay, thank you.
And any discussion on the social emotional learning?
No, Madam Chair, I would just say I want to thank all of you for the presentation. I think it's important. The public did ask a lot of questions, and I think we addressed that. And, you know, the more we do those kinds of things, the better off it is. So, and I'm encouraged by the programs that are there. So I don't think the district is not committed to this in any way, shape, or form. I think we are. So I just want to thank you.
I, too, would like to thank you both on your hard work on this. I agree with Mr. Testa, especially after the pandemic. This is extremely important, and we have had a lot of concern on this topic. So I, too, was impressed on what we already have and how we're even moving that further. So thank you very much, two of you.
Thank you, and hopefully we'll see you on the 25th.
I will be there. And the last one was the graduation requirements, and I'm sure we have discussion on that, Mr. Testa.
Well, I don't know, how'd you guess? Thank you. I just want to point out some of the parts of these graduation requirements. I think the administration did a good job presenting concerns. Rhode Island Association of School Committees has those same concerns. And I have to tell you, as a parent, I'm really concerned. I sat through a RIDE presentation of these things to RIASC a few months ago. And the first question I had for the RIDE people were, what are you doing with the arts? And they'll tell you, oh, it really doesn't impact the arts. But it does. And I think it's the equivalent of the frog in the pot of water. In the first year or two, maybe not. By the third year, the fourth year, that water gets hot, and then all of a sudden, there's no more arts courses. I'm really, really concerned. My kids were arts kids. I didn't have athletes. I had drama kids. I had chorus kids, band kids. And no district should cut that because the state says we want to turn everybody into some sort of a technocrat. While I have no problem with teaching kids these skills in the maths and the computer sciences and all that, that's not every kid. It's not. And I think we shortchange those kids, and that's going to be a sin if that goes through. Also, in case anyone missed it, I think it's C8, deals with IP students. I'm just going to read what the proposed regulations say. It says every student should be required to attempt the credit sequence stated in 2.3, blah, blah, blah. If a student with an IP has failed or is at risk of failing one of the required credits, the student's IP team may review the student's IP to determine if the student's struggles are a manifestation of their disability. Think about that for a second.
It's backwards.
Right? I had a child with an IP.
So bad.
And if somebody came to me to say that my daughter was intentionally tanking, I have a problem with that. Now, it doesn't mandate it, but it's there. It's there. I think that's a slap to IP student parents and a slap to the IP students. And then it says if it's such a determination is made, they can place the student in a RIDE-approved readiness pathway, blah, 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 blah. Parents of IEP students should be very concerned with that kind of language. And then, I mean, I've always had a problem with Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry. I can tell you I'm 58, and I don't use algebra. Don't use it. I'm in the business world. I don't use algebra. Geometry, once in a while when I do home projects. But Algebra 1 and Algebra 2, I don't use those. Then a parent brought up earlier about the Holocaust studies, African American studies, civics and financial literacy. Those were passed by the General Assembly. They passed the law saying that RIDE has to require those. So that's going to be incorporated into this too. Now, we did financial literacy. We passed that a couple of years ago. But, as far as African American studies, if anybody cares to learn, Keith Stokes has a project called the 1696 Heritage Group. I've been to 2 presentations on that. It's a really, really good program, and they're trying to get that woven into the curriculum. It doesn't just deal with, African American, it deals with the history of the Narragansetts in the state of Rhode Island. It's a really good program. I liked it when I was in those presentations. And then one other part of these graduation requirements. Each graduating senior shall complete at least one of the following steps. Complete a FAFSA. Complete and submit to the Office of Post-Secondary Commissioner a free application for state student aid. Each graduating senior shall complete a resume in order to graduate. Now, seriously, I have friends who work in the social services, and they say people come to them and they can't fill these forms out, and that's awful. I don't see, you want to require students to do this, just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand what's in the heads of people who say that has to be a requirement to graduate. But I would also share, lastly, some of the concerns that the administration put up. The Association of School Committees has those same concerns. And it affords a little time for planning, which you talked about. Concerns about requiring students to complete 2 credits in a world language. That's big. That's a major change. Every district's going to be forced to find more modern language teachers. They don't exist, right? So in rides, I don't know, in their heads, so what are you going to do? You're going to take a teacher that's not trained in world languages, and now we'll have these emergency certifications? And you know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense to me. And then requiring the study of computer science may take away from arts. I'm convinced that this will be a detriment to arts and the fine arts in schools. So, and then there's no decision yet to incorporate the requirements into the basic education plan. So that's a little bit of cart before the horse. So I hope all school districts pass the same resolution that hopefully we're going to pass tonight. But and I hope a lot of parents have commented. These are some significant changes, and with all due respect to the Department of Ed, I mean, we just made changes and we haven't even had a chance. We made changes and we had a pandemic that affected us for almost 2 years. And now you want to change the bar again. We haven't even had a chance to get to the original bar. And now they want to just make it even higher. So we're setting kids up to not succeed here. So that's all I have to say.
Madam Chair?
Mr. Cornell?
Yeah, so Mr. Tester bring up a lot of great points, and also thank you for bringing up the language about the IEP. You're absolutely right. That's borderline discriminatory. So thank you for bringing that up. So also another thing, just an idea to throw out there. Another thing I think we should have our students a course take is on Rhode Island history, because hardly anyone knows about the history of our state, and there's a lot of history in our state, both good and bad, about Roger Williams founding a state based on religious freedom, but then there's also bad of the genocide of Native Americans from King Philip's War. So a lot of history goes there, and also slavery also was a big part of Rhode Island's history too. So it's and corruption has been rampant throughout Rhode Island's history. So that's another thing I think it's important for people to know more about their own state. And another thing, because it's been what?
Oh, of course, on corruption.
Oh yeah, it still happens. So
That would have to be a semester, I think.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, another thing, because it's been discussed a lot. So regarding phys ed, so right now phys ed's only for 1 quarter of the year. When I was in high school, it was more 3 quarters. Well, I think, yeah, because I think one was held.
4.
Yeah, but it's only down to 1 now. And what was the impetus for that happening? What was the justification for making it only 1 quarter?
I can't speak to that. It predates my term in central office.
Okay. Is there any way we can rectify that to restore it to 3 quarters a year?
We can look at the schedule. I think the schedule is the major barrier at this time, and the schedule is a contractual item, so it's something that we would have to look at and possibly have a memorandum of understanding with the on the contract.
Okay, if you could look into that, that would be great, because like that's been discussed for a long time, and if we can finally get going on that and restore that, I think that would be great, because phys ed's really important. I know some students don't like phys ed, but personally, I like phys ed when I was in high school. It's always good to get outside, get some good exercise. It's really important, and a lot of people don't get a lot of exercise, so I think it's good if we can restore that to at least 3/4 in a year. So if we could look into that, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Adams?
So I'd just like to reflect the same concerns as my colleagues. I mean, I'm not going to regurgitate everything that's just been said, but especially something I want to focus on is the arts that Mr. Testa brought up. I, as well as Mr. Cornell, were both very active in music. So like that's something huge and something that really allows kids to really express themselves in a very, very unique way. I mean, how many people really know how to play an instrument at this point? I mean, in my graduating class was what, 250 kids? I think maybe 30 of them were playing instruments. So, I mean, the more and more you take away from that, you're kind of putting a stranglehold on individuality that you can expose your kids to. And I think that's something that's awful to eventually, hopefully not have to put that on our kids. And I mean, I express the same sentiment that Mr. Testa said. I hope other school districts put forward a resolution that hopefully we'll be putting forward through tonight.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. I haven't gone yet, but you go.
Yeah, so just quickly to follow up on what Mr. Adams said, like I completely agree regarding music. Like when as a band, one common theme, unfortunately, like it was decline in enrollment in the music program. And a lot of times it wasn't because people didn't want to play instruments, they just couldn't because their schedule wouldn't work. But however, like music is a really important program to expose students to various types of music, which is an important part of our culture. And also, like it's a good thing for them to like pretty much to relax, to also to like experience something different, like because like when school, like you're learning a lot, so this could be a good time to just enjoy yourself, enjoy music, which and music can do a lot of good things for people, and we need to encourage that. So I completely agree with Mr. Adams on that.
I would also add that it's preventing kids to explore further in English, social studies, and science in the elective areas that they have a passion for. And we're restricting kids from focusing on that passion and being more successful in our schools.
I'm not going to say everything that my colleague said because I'm in agreement with all of it. As far as the arts go, I want to say that requiring everyone to take a language, I think, is ridiculous. And if we're going to teach languages like that, we need to start in first grade. And that's where it should be instilled, because we're probably one of the few countries that don't teach kids another language, if not 3 other languages, at a young age, and that's when you should really be learning it. But as far as when I was in school, I graduated in '86 from Pilgrim High School. And when I was there, you took 2 routes. You're either set for college, or you're set for trade school, or secretarial type programs. And I reflect back on that, and I was on the college route, obviously, and most of my friends that were in college prep did more than 2 years of a language, and I elected not to. I did my 2 years, and I also took art for 2 of my years, and this is blending into what they're all saying. It's not just music, too. As far as myself, I always had a creative side, and I was able to bring that out amongst being prepared to go to college. And I think that's an important thing, because I think a lot of kids at a young age have a creative side, and if it's not nurtured, it's just going to dissipate, and it's not healthy. And I actually took, as an elective, I took art classes in my university out of pure enjoyment, and I was told by the art students that I was absolutely insane for taking what I took. But that's my point. Even in college, I still wanted to take some art classes. And I think by making these children take classes that they should have learned when they were young, to try to enforce them to do it. Some of them are already having enough problems with just learning English. So if they're not going to do well in English, how do we expect them to do any better taking Spanish or French, etc.? And of course, we also have the teaching problems where are we going to find these teachers? If every district is looking for them, where are we going to find them? My other big concern, and it's been a concern of mine before I even got on the school committee, is how phys ed is handled here. In fact, I had that conversation one day with Mr. Cornell, and I was an athlete, so I liked phys ed, so we had a conversation about it one day, and Mr. Cornell told me, and he's the musician, I'm the jock, and he told me how much gym helped him, phys ed, how much he enjoyed it, and it really wasn't what I was going to expect to hear from him. And I really do, and I do wish we could get more of it, not take away. And Mr. McCaffrey, you know that. I started talking about that my first year on the school committee, and then obviously the pandemic happened. So if I too think we should focus on giving these kids more opportunity to move, because kids don't move around as we did when we were kids, and it's important. As far as the maths, I think that's horrific, and I agree. Kids with IEPs and kids without IEPs that are just struggle with math. That was me, and I work in finance. I didn't do well in Algebra 2. I had a very hard time in Algebra 2, and I work in finance, so I don't use any of it. And I don't think anybody should be forced to have to take all those classes when they're not even on track to go to college and have to utilize them at a college level, because after that, you don't use it. So I agree. I hope that more people put up a resolution. I plan to vote for it. I think it's a positive thing, and I think the more districts come out and speak out to Rhode about their ridiculous requirements, maybe they'll look at it a second time. And in all honesty, in the community's defense, as the chair of the school committee, I didn't know when all those meetings were for public comment. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I didn't even know the one was in Warwick. I would have gone to it. I saw no notices for it, and I very much am on social media. So I think parents should be writing to Rhode complaining, and I agree, parents with kids with IEPs definitely should be concerned and be writing letters, because they're setting up a lot of our children, not even those with IEPs, to not do well. And then say, hey, what about the kid that didn't do well because he didn't have an IEP? That's not fair. I didn't have an IEP. I had to go to summer school for Algebra 2. And both my parents were teachers. It was not a proud moment for me. But you know what? I found out it was the teacher that I had, because when I took it with another teacher, I understood it. So, I mean, we need to really look at what balances in one's life and not force people to take things that aren't going to benefit them. I'd rather see a kid taking extra English to be a better writer and to understand grammar better than to take a Spanish class just because they're told they have to. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I wanted to pick up on what Mr. McCaffrey said, and I'm glad you said it because I meant to and forgot. But I think one of the points of high school is to allow kids to experiment with different interests. And when you start to heap on graduation requirements, and Warwick has a lot of graduation requirements as well, you take away that choice, and that's not fair to the kids, right? Electives, you should have a lot of electives, because you can talk to anybody who probably has some sort of recollection of something they took in high school that they may have pursued in college, or they may have pursued it after college. But we can't take away the choices of kids. And I said that we're going to turn kids into technocrats. And I think that's what some of this, I don't want to say it's a straitjacket, but it's pretty darn close to it. If we remove the choice for the students, I don't think we're serving them well. So I would hope parents would see that as well.
Any more discussion on that?
Madam Chair, I would just like to also comment that we're moving towards personalized learning to promote the interests of students, and this goes against that movement that we've been working towards, so that's a disappointment.
Madam Chair, can I just make a request that we just move up the resolution?
Yeah, I actually was going to do that because
Yeah,
it's
because
the
it'll flow.
appropriate time for it.
Okay,
So I guess we'll move on to doing number 6
Okay.
and go back to 4 and 5.
okay.
So we're going to cover our resolution proposed for high school graduation requirements, and that would be with Mr. Testa.
Thank you. I'll just read the resolution just for the public's edification. There's quite a few whereases, but it's not that long. So it reads, whereas the Council on Secondary and Elementary Education is considering adopting new high school graduation requirements, and whereas the Warwick School Committee supports the need for vigorous but achievable standards, and whereas many local education agencies are struggling with staffing shortages, especially teachers and other certified employees, and whereas in the 2021 legislation session, the General Assembly mandated new curricula in civics, Holocaust studies, African American studies, and required them to be incorporated into the basic education plan, whereas in the BEP, the Board of Regents acknowledges that implementing an aligned, cohesive system requires a long-term investment in building the capacity of individuals, institutions, and educational communities to develop the knowledge, skills, and resources for effecting sustainable improvement. And whereas many LEAs may lack the capacity, instructional resources, and personnel to implement the new legislative mandates, as well as the proposed high school graduation requirements. And whereas Rhode Island General Law 45-13-7 asserts state mandate means any state-initiated statutory or executive action or rule, regulation, or policy adopted by a state department or agency or a quasi-public department or agency that requires a local government to establish, expand, or modify its activities in a way as to necessitate additional expenditure from local government revenue sources where the expenditures are not otherwise reimbursed in whole. And whereas Rhode Island General Law 16-22-34 requires the Department of Education to determine the incremental cost to meet the BEP and determine the sufficiency of both the state and the local education aid to the LEA to meet the BEP. Now therefore be it resolved that the Warwick School Committee respectfully requests the Department of Education to determine the cost to each LEA to meet the high school graduation requirements, and be it further resolved that the Council on Elementary and Secondary Education defer any action on the proposed high school graduation requirements until the department reports to them on the cost to the LEAs of its implementation. That's the resolution. I would make a motion that we adopt the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want me to sign that? Yes. Okay, hold on 1 second. They want me to sign it right here. Who has to sign? Kyle, you need to sign it. You don't have a pen? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move back to what we passed, which is 4 and 5. Number 4 is a discussion and update on the construction projects. Mr. Gothberg.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members, superintendent. A quick update on our upcoming projects. Sherman Elementary renovations, bid came in, we were over budget. We were able to negotiate with a low bidder, Allbird Construction, and bring it in within the budget constraints, so we'll be moving forward. Project is expected to start next week. We're just awaiting DOH 10-day notification approval on the abatement. Hoxie Elementary HVAC and ADA project. We were unable to lower that bid. Value engineering options were limited, if non-existent. We've been going back and forth, and one of the last flies in the ointment with this project is today I was notified that Ngrid is unable to confirm a delivery of the new transformer that's required. We can't guarantee this project moving forward because even temporary heat requires an upgrade in the transformer. So if we do not have this, we can't take out the old heat, so it does not make sense to move forward the project. We'll look at moving just ADA forward. Maybe we can do that, but I've got some scrambling to do tomorrow to see what we can do. Women renovations, that project is moving forward nicely. Allborg is organizing and laying out the summer schedule. They've been in and out of the building for the last couple weeks. They're even 3D'ing above the ceiling to make sure that all the ductwork and all the coordination happens smoothly. There are delays in the supply chain, but we think we can manage these and keep the heat going and make the project move forward and get it done in the 2-year schedule. Greenwood additional work, the AD ramp site work and abatement is out to bid, and what bid will be in a couple weeks. Park and Scott site work projects are out to bid next week or the week after. And playgrounds, the 5 packages go out to bid early next month, so we can get that done and before next winter. Update on the new high schools and our hope for that. We received preliminary approval Friday that our stage 2 preliminary was approved. I hope to have some good news. There was supposed to be formal approval as we speak, but I just got a text from Mario Carino, director at SBA, and there was a gas leak in the building, so they could not hold the meeting. But I can go over some of the highlights quickly. We had expected, as we talked about, the bond we were hoping for is $350 million. We were hoping that RIDE would give us $300 million in a reimbursable figure, reimbursing off that $300 million. Because of the hard work with the Stage 2 team, we were actually approved for $314,559,510, which is an increase of over $14 million of money that can be reimbursed too. And additionally, I found out tonight that there is $14,547,461 in pay-as-you-go funding for the project that hopefully will be approved when for formal approval. So what that means is we do not have to ask for the total of $350 million for the bond. We could go and they could actually ask, we could ask for $335,452,539, which is would be quite a savings in interest. Additionally, if there's a statewide bond that should be on the ballot this fall for additional funding. If that is approved, we would get an additional $9.5 million in pay-go, which would bring down the potential bond to $325 million, just under $326 million. So that is all good news. We have also requested that the resolution for the enabling legislation be moved forward as soon as possible with the City Council. We have not received a response on that yet. And if that is approved, then in June, the state legislature would move that forward and get it on the ballot. November, the voters would weigh in, and if all approved, it goes back to City Council in December for approval by the mayor and the City Council. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you, Mr. Gothberg. I appreciate the updates on all of those projects at the elementaries and Windman and the high school project. This is, you can't ask for better news. We couldn't ask for more favorable treatment, whatever you want to call it. And I don't want to sound flip, but we're really close to a build one, get one free.
This is BOGO.
Right, and I am fully convinced that opportunities like this in this state don't come around that often. And we have an opportunity here to do something very, very significant for the schools in this city and for the city as a whole. So I remain optimistic. You also didn't mention if we successfully appeal the FCI score at Pilgrim.
We talked to the mayor on Friday. I apologize for that. They agreed to go ahead with it. Tim and I suggested that we take it out of the revolving fund, since that is part of the reimbursement. So if they were hesitant at all, we gave them it out, so it didn't have to come out of their end.
And just for the public's edification, the cost to appeal, the FCI score is the building condition from the Jacobs report. So if we appeal it successfully and it crosses the threshold where RIDE says you should demolish the building instead of trying to save it, it'll cost us $13,000, and it gives us 2.5% on the entire project.
Yeah, that figure, additional figure, would be $7,863,987 additional reimbursement.
Right. So, I mean, if we could invest money that way, it would all be Warren Buffett's. So, yeah, again, I'm very excited. I would just love for this to get to the voters, and then we can do our thing. Thank you, Mr. Gothberg.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you in public. I know I wrote you an email.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough for all your hard work on this. I know how dedicated you've been and how much extra hours you always put in, but even more so with this. You tripled your hours instead of just usually doubling it. So I want to thank you. This is excellent news. And as Mr. Testa said, it is almost like getting one, buy one, get one free. And I think the public really needs to understand what a huge gift that would be to us, to not just get one new high school, but two, and almost get them for the price of one. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I also would like to thank Mr. Gothberg. We're working really closely, and I've noticed how hard he's been working. But I also would like to thank the cooperation and the support that RIDE and the School Building Authority has given us through these planning stages. So I really appreciate their
The
support.
Stage 2 team worked really, really hard on this, and RIDE was very, very cooperative. It went out of their way to get us that extra $14 million. It was it's a really big deal. Thank you.
So now we move on to number 5, which is the FY22 monthly financial report and year-end review, and the requisitions approved, $500 to $4,999. Mr. McGrath?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. Before you, you'll find my monthly fiscal report. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
I just have one question, and I think I've asked you this before, Mr. McGrath. The balance remaining after encumbrances looks to be a deficit of 2.9, but that's really just ESSER funds that we're waiting for reclassification of.
Correct, yep. We still need to do the journal entries to reclass it, so in the system it still shows up as general fund expenses, and we haven't made those adjustments at this point yet.
Got it, okay, thank you. Because there was a social media post today that said we're running a deficit of $2.9 million, and that's really not the case. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. McGrath. So now we move on to number 7, the discussion action of the change orders on curriculum, Great Minds, PBC. Dr. Schultz.
Hello, good evening, everybody. So before you are 2 change orders. This amount is covered fully in the ESSER 3 grant. It's just that we added extra materials and professional development for teachers and students in grades K through 2 to give them more just support with the foundational skills that they need for reading. It's part of the Wit and Wisdom program that we're adopting. It's called Geodes and is highly acclaimed, and so we wanted to make sure we had enough resources. And again, it's already been fully covered in ESSER. This is just the paperwork to show it.
Discussion?
I move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is number 8, discussion and action, transportation, increase of walking distance, policy EEAA. Ms. Machado.
Good evening. I'm requesting a quarter-mile increase to the Warwick Public Schools walking distance policy, EEAA, starting in the 22-23 school year. Elementary grades K to 5 will be 1 mile. Middle school grades 6 to 8 will be 2 miles. High school grades 9 to 12 will be 2.25 miles. This request was included in the 2023 budget and returns the district to a previously approved policy prior to COVID. I'm requesting a vote out for this request and can answer any questions you may have.
Any discussion on this? Mr. Adams?
So just to clarify, I think you just said it. Basically, this was accounted for in the transportation line item in the budget that we approved 2 weeks ago, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cornell?
Yeah, also, I would like to thank you for clarifying that this is what our policy was before the pandemic, because that was my question, so thank you for answering that.
Correct. Thank you.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you. Ms. Machado, can you just share with me, or with us, I should say, just give us a little history here, because as I mentioned to you earlier, I remember we did something for COVID, right? Did we propose these walking distances, approve them, and never really do them?
Correct. So we approved these walking distance prior to COVID. When COVID happened and we had new guidelines and I could only put 22 students on a bus, we went to an extreme walking distance. Last summer, we were asked to decrease this current walking distance. And now, due to budget constraints and what we were asked to do for the budget for 23, I'm asking to go back to this walking distance.
Okay, thank you. And it's no reflection on you at all. I remember previously when we were asked to go back to what's in place now. And in hindsight, being 2020, I'm wondering, why do we do that? Why would that have been recommended to us? But that's water under the bridge now, so, okay, thank you.
Dr. Cecil?
Yes, only questioning because it's policy that it just has to go through 2 reads. So tonight, the request would be for the first read, and I'll get with Ms. Machado, update the actual policy, bring it for the second read next month for final approval. And I believe, Mr. Testa, that whenever that they were going to go to that distance because of transportation, and so that was done in anticipation, and maybe it never had to happen. But I know we've made changes to that policy at least 3 times in the last 3 years.
Yep.
Because of COVID. So it's just a matter of making the change, having the 2 reads because it's actual policy. So whatever the figures are, we'll just update the policy,
Okay.
bring it back for a second read next month.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dr. Cecil. Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, a motion to approve, transportation policy EEAA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is number 9, discussion action, notice to return to National School Lunch Program. Ms. Machado.
Good evening. This is an announcement that the waiver provided to Rhode Island school districts to serve meals to students at no cost will end on June 30th. Starting next school year, the National School Breakfast and Lunch Program will be in effect. School meal applications will be available on the Warwick Public Schools website early this summer. Meal prices have remained the same and are also posted on the district website. I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, Ms. Machado, I know that because for the last couple of years, while lunches have been free, the numbers of free and reduced lunch have just fallen off the radar, right? So do we have a base upon which we build? Or are we going to take some sort of an aggressive communication policy to families to say, please, because it's always been a bit of an issue here, because I always felt we had more families that qualify for it but just never signed up for it. And so now you come off 2 years where it's been free all the time. If we don't communicate that to parents, then there's going to be some unhappy parents. So I think we have to come up with some sort of a way to reach out to the families across all grade levels. And I don't know how we do that, if we use social media communications, emails to parents, school communications. We just have to have a full court press to make sure everybody knows that we need to have people apply.
I agree. We obviously have our information on the website, but talking to Dr. Taylor earlier today, we rely heavily on the school principals, school administration as well. So I think we're going to definitely try some more innovative techniques to get families to apply. And now having the applications online, there's it's much more private. There's very few people who actually see the applications come through. Actually, only 2 of us who see the applications come through. So I'm hoping with that, the stigma will go away.
Yeah, and free and reduced lunch is a significant part of state aid.
Correct.
It's a very significant portion in the equation for state aid. So if somebody qualifies, there's no shame in it. If you qualify, qualify, and it's completely confidential. So, all right, thank you.
I would just like to also ask a question regarding, are we going to put out the information again on how to add money to your account and how that all works out? Because obviously we're going to have some parents that have never done it before because they're new to the district or their children just entered school age. And also there might be parents that just need a refresher course on that. So I think if we can come up with also a plan to go through the motions of how to add money to your account and how that's done, I think that would be extremely beneficial, because we've had problems before the pandemic, and we were having problems with parents not really understanding that concept of what money's on there and what money's not on there. So we don't want to go back to having all sorts of money issues regarding school lunches as we've had in the past. So I think I'm with Mr. Testa. We need to full court press this.
Yes, I agree.
Madam Chair, I have one more question, I think, for Mr.
Sure.
McGrath. Mr. McGrath, since everything was free, we didn't have to worry about debt, right? Like in the past. So
Yes.
going forward, that'll become a concern, right? Because we know we like to make headlines for these kinds of things.
Correct. When I first was talking to Ms. Machado about this, I do have concerns. So definitely making sure that all the free and reduced applications are done, and educating parents on the payment process will go a long way. But I do have my concerns. We've had issues in the past, and we definitely need to find ways to rectify that.
Yeah, and I think that could become a monthly update too. I'm not averse to that. I don't know about the rest of the committee.
I'm
but,
not.
We just need to have a running tab, and the public needs to know. So,
We can't go back into having a $75,000 debt of school lunches. That we cannot do anymore.
Correct.
We
Yeah,
don't have the money to cover that.
Correct. The key would be figuring out tools to help rectify those situations. So we can definitely have discussions around that.
Awesome. Thank you. There's no action being taken, I don't believe, at this time. Okay, discussion action on contract award for transportation, Tyler Technology Software Tools.
Good evening. I'm requesting the purchase of additional software tools to the transportation routing software Traversa. The additional tools will provide the transportation department with GPS data, vehicle alerts, geofencing rules, and making status of individual buses visible. The most exciting tool is Ride 360, which is the web and mobile app that allows parents and students to access their own secure data for bus stop location, route, and pickup time. We plan on a slow rollout, piloting with a small number of families during our ESY program and start of the school year with our large bus riders. I'm requesting a vote on this request and can answer any questions you may have.
I'm 100% for this. I think it's exactly what our district needs for better communication between the community, students, and obviously administration. So, any questions, discussion on this?
Madam Chair, thank you. Ms. Machado, I'm excited for this. I think for parents, the app is invaluable. How many parents leave work to pick their kids up, and then they're waiting at the bus stop for a half hour? At least if the app can tell me where my bus is, then I can not have to leave work, take my lunch to pick up my son or daughter, and then I'm there for an hour. So I'm excited to see how this rolls out, because I think it's a very parent-friendly thing, which is good. Thank you.
It's also free of cost for the families.
Excellent. I have a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, number 11, discussion action, bid award maintenance custodial supplies. Mrs. Higgins,
Good evening. I am here for approval for custodial supply bid 22-0024. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Madam Chair, Ms. Higgins, we approved this already as a not to exceed or something like that, right? We already approved the funding for this. This is just filling that, right? On the custodial supplies?
This is for the new custodial supply list. This is so we can set up the POs for the upcoming year.
Okay, but Mr. McGrath, we already approved the funding for this, right?
We put it in our budget.
Yeah, it's already in the
Yes.
budget, yes. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's okay. I probably asked it wrong, so thank you. I move approval.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion action on contract award for Veterans Middle School Kitchen Project, the plumbing contractor, Ms. Machado and Mr. Gothberg.
This is a request to pay DeGregorio and Sons, Inc. for plumbing work that has been performed at the Vets Middle School kitchen. This request was deemed an emergency and approved prior to the PO due to the sensitive nature of the timeline, and this service is budgeted. Mr. Gothberg is here for any questions on plumbing.
Actually, Ms. Machado. Any questions?
Are we done?
That is a very fair question.
No.
That is not the right answer.
No, we ran into this whole end of the wing. We found that the hot water heater is gone. So I'm able to handle that through the ADA funds because it handles all the ADA bathrooms we did a couple summers ago. So I still have funding there, so I'm going to take the money out of that. The reason we had to hire the plumber for the kitchen area and take it out of Ms. Machado's funds is because of the way the project was set up before we took it over. It was set up that our plumbers, in-house plumbers, were going to handle it from buildings and grounds. It was above their scope, not above their abilities, but above their time that they could put into it. It's probably a month's worth of work every day. So we had to bring somebody else in. And this number was 10,000 less than the next lowest number.
I'd move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, discussion action, contract award to the Warwick Area Career Tech Center for electronics equipment. Mr. Kane?
Madam Chair, members of the school committee, Mr. Kane is requesting that 7-bench digital multimeter with functioning functioning capability. Also, he's looking at purchasing some oscillating meters as well that would be aligned to the curriculum within the electronics area. It would make them current in their area. What's unique about this is it's state funds that would purchase it, so there'll be no immediate cost to the district. It'll be paid for by the state of Rhode Island. I'm requesting your permission to purchase these items.
Excellent.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, number 14, discussion action, contract award special services, a custom activity chair. Mr. Capilano.
Good evening. I'm requesting approval to purchase a student-specific high-low activity chair. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, number 15, discussion action, bid award athletics, middle school soccer uniforms. Mr. Ricks, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school committee members. I come before you tonight to seek approval to purchase middle school soccer uniforms for women and veterans. This would be boys and girls teams from both schools, home and away uniforms and shorts.
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Mr. Ricks. Okay, next item, discussion action, bid award for maintenance of elevator maintenance inspection and repairs. Yeah, 16, I'm sorry. Bid award for the sanitary napkin dispensers. Ms. Higgins?
Good evening. I'm here to get the bid 22-0031 approved for this evening. It's for the sanitary disposals. Please keep in mind that this is an unbudgeted item.
Okay. Discussion?
No, Madam Chair, this is the state law that passed, that we have to do this, right?
Yes,
So
it
it's
is.
unbudgeted, right?
It's unbudgeted.
Okay. I move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I just want to add that I'm very pleased because I've had parents complain to me about this. So I think it's actually a good investment. Okay, now we're on to the elevator maintenance inspection and repairs. How's that going?
Good evening. I'm here to get the bid approval for the maintenance on the elevators.
So moved.
Second, and I have a question.
Sure.
Is this for 3 years?
Yes, it is.
It is, so total is 35,430, and it's a 3-year contract, a commitment. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we're on to the contract award for Scott School picnic tables. Mrs. Cousino?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. I'm here tonight to ask you to approve the 5 picnic tables from Inova for Scott Elementary School. Principal Bolano would like to use some of her Feinstein funds and the amount of $10,143.82 to purchase these, so they would have students and staff to have outside instruction and outdoor lunches.
Move approval.
Second, and I have one question.
I do too.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Testa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's kind of a silly question, I think, but how do we secure these? These are going to be outside, right?
Most of the time, I know I can speak from experience at Warwick, is we chained them to the trees that were in the area, in the, in the yard. We did take pictures of them. We bring in the stands and the umbrellas every single night, and the tables stay outside at times.
Yeah, that was my biggest, I can see someone, Yahoo trying to drag them down Centerville Road. Okay, thank you.
I understand Feinstein money's being used for these. I just have a question, and Mr. McCaffrey, you might be able to help me. Is there a way the Career and Tech Center can make these? I mean, they make much more, complex things than a picnic table.
I mean, I could definitely ask Mr. Kane and his team to assist.
I think
in
that
any
would
way
be great.
possible.
I mean, if
But
they want to use the Feinstein money to buy the wood, but let's have our kids do it.
The biggest challenge is the scheduling of the work. They have
Right.
work planned
It was a
out
thought.
for the first half of next semester already.
Okay.
And I think, not to interrupt, I think the other thing is that these are steel. They have, so they'll be, for life, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Rather than the wood that does give splinters sometimes, and they get very, very heavy. So these are like a composite steel
Okay.
material.
Well, even so.
Madam Chair, I do think it's a great idea, though.
Yeah, I think we should look into it because our kids know how to use metal too, and we do have a welding. They can all kind of team up. I mean, they build, before COVID, they were building houses, and it's pretty impressive what these kids can do. And between several of our Career and Tech Center programs, I think they could probably sort this out at a cheaper rate using Feinstein money, which would be a great collaboration on behalf of the district. So it's just a thought.
A lot of the schools have requisitioned the Career and Tech Center to build the signs for the frontage of their buildings. I know at Warwick we have the sign, and it was made
Right,
by
that's
the Career and
excellent.
Tech.
Yeah, I think we should utilize our students and give them the best opportunities that they can to get to. It's more experience for him. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
I think it's been already.
It's been approved. Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And our last is number 19, discussion action, contract award curriculum, wit, wisdom, coaching, professional development. Dr. Schultz.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So this in front of you is something very exciting. Next year, we have to be a little bit creative with the way that we're going to be delivering professional development to our teachers because we don't have as many professional development days embedded into the school calendar. And so one solution that we came up with was doing it during the school day. And so we have a fabulous coach from Wit and Wisdom. She is one of the most knowledgeable people I've ever met in my life, and dynamic, absolutely. And so she'll be going to each school and really helping out in this capacity. And so one of the things that we're starting with is by doing a lead and launch session for principals this summer. And so this would cover so that our building leaders are elevated to really what they are, instructional leaders. And so it will give them the background knowledge for them launching this new program in the fall. And we have the money, it is budgeted in the elementary budget. So I would just ask for your approval on this.
Move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to know if she's as dynamic as her. Because Dr. Schultz, you own that. Okay, next we move on to our second public comment, which is on non-agenda items. You'll have 2 minutes to speak, and we're holding it to 30 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. My only concern as a parent is the protection of my child's rights and the protection of my parental rights. And with your Panorama program, I have looked into the protection of both my daughter's rights and my rights as a parent. And I have stumbled across several attorneys, and I've stumbled across several psychologists. They both agree that you are violating the federal law 20 U.S. Code 1232, protection of pupil and parental rights. I suggest before you implement Panorama that you read this federal law. I also suggest that you have an opt-in or opt-out program signature for us parents. If you read the law and the federal law, it includes all instructional materials, tapes, supplementary materials of any surveys, analysis, evaluations, any programs shall be available for inspection of parents and guardians. This limits on all surveys, analysis, evaluations. No student shall be required to be part of any applicable program. No student shall be required to be part of anything to submit a survey, analysis, behavior, mental or psychological problems of the student or student's family, behavior or behavioral attitudes. It is illegal, antisocial, self-incriminating, or demeaning behavior, critical appraisals of other individuals with whom represents to have close family relationships. I can go on, you can read it yourself. But if my daughter or any other parents have their child opted in without permission, there will be a lawsuit. Now, this isn't because, and I know you've all heard that I was running for school committee because win or lose, I don't care. I am a parent. My child sees a therapist outside of school. I do not send my child to school to be analyzed by the teacher or by any other school official to tell me, without my permission, what behavior she has. She wants to speak to anyone personally. I looked into the panorama. I read it. It's a survey. How do you feel today? What do you need today? Do you need to speak to anyone privately? My daughter is 8 years old. If her goldfish died or her dog died and she needs to speak to someone privately, and you put the counselor's notes in that database and it follows her till 12th grade because she was depressed over her dog or goldfish dying, that follows her for the rest of her career in elementary school all the way up to secondary school. This isn't about any campaign. This isn't about anything. This is my concern as a parent not to have medical issues intertwine with her education. I have a therapist for my child outside of school. I don't need one inside of school. That is why she has one outside school. Now, I'm not saying that another parent doesn't want their kid to, but there's an opt-in and opt-out. You said you've been doing this for 5 years? Well, my 18-year-old was in the school. He graduated last year. When were you going to tell us parents you were doing this? I suggest you read the federal laws before you implement this program. Thank you.
Hello, James Richardson, taxpayer, Warwick, Rhode Island. This is more of a question about curriculum itself. I just kind of want to ask you guys, and this is something that has been talked about. It's more of an exclusive question. And what I mean by that is, how are things such as civil rights, slavery, Native American rights, this genocide that was spoken about, how are these not necessarily being taught in school now? I would ultimately like to know that, because I think there tends to be a big difference between things not being taught and also not being taught by the standards of a department that itself is receiving grants, to quote you, David Testa, from very wealthy technocrats. So if anybody would be able to answer that question, I would just like to know how these certain topics themselves are not being taught in the school.
Just so you're aware, we cannot interact with public comment. It's a violation of, we can't do it,
Thank
of
you.
our open laws. Mr. Richardson, please feel free to email all of us and we can comment to you, but we just can't do it in our meeting. Okay, thank you.
Hello, Larry Dorr, 35 Nightingale Avenue, Warwick Neck. This is where I started my special ed career in 1985, working for Edmund Miley. Great man. The last 4 or 5 meetings I've been here, when the strategic plan was rolled out, I can go through it, there's no reason to, but social emotional learning, social emotional learning, social emotional learning. The theory statement, social value and action section, social emotional. We need a dashboard, right? We're going to monitor every kid with social emotional learning. As a special educator, social emotional learning was in a functional performance category on an IEP. So if a student had social emotional issues, they had an IEP and they came to me. 10 years in Roxbury, 10 years in Dorchester, 2 years in Lawrence. And I took care of those kids. And I have to say, I just want to warn you, it's not really great to say, well, Algebra 2, the kid's got an IEP. I helped kids that took Algebra 2, and I stunk in math at the time. I helped them get through Algebra 2 and get into college. So don't dismiss those kids on an IEP that want to go to college, because I'm not saying, maybe you just need to think about it, but that's how it came off tonight. When every time you said, oh, well, they have an IEP, they don't need to do a college course. That's not true for every kid. Some kids want to. When did we make the jump that all of a sudden every kid needed social emotional learning? When did that happen? Because of the pandemic? If that's when it happened, then that was your fault. Your unions shut down the schools. Your unions masked everybody. So if you created anxiety in a kid, That's your problem. I can tell you my nieces don't need any social emotional learning. So what do? Are they still in the program? Are their names still going to be in the program, doctor? And what happens to that data when it goes? Where does that data go? Does that data follow the kid? Can we get an answer on that? How about something like that for the parents?
Hi, Darlene Etko again. Just a correction, the unions did not shut down the schools. The school committee voted to go virtual last year. And keep in mind that in the fall of 2020, the special programs were all housed here at VETS because VETS had the proper ventilation system. We had all of the self-contained, all of the special programs in this building. The WELC also opened, as did the Career Center. And when the district got 13,000 air purifiers into the schools, then the other schools opened too. The unions had nothing to do with shutting down, or rather going virtual in the fall of 2020. As far as, I just want to make a correction about phys ed that was spoken about earlier. A director of secondary, probably about 9 or 10 years ago, decided to cut phys ed down to 1 quarter a year in order to be able to cut physical education teachers. That was it. That year they cut 6 secondary physical education teachers, and subsequently were able to cut more because of that 1 quarter a year. And the consolation prize was to add some phys ed electives, which vary in, I don't want to say quality because the teachers do their best to teach those classes, but really the phys ed teachers would prefer to have 3/4 of phys ed and 1/4 of health. And as far as social emotional learning, I think letting the kids get outside and get exercise would go a long way. And just to follow up what the previous speaker said, our special education teachers do a great job working with kids in all of their subjects, including Algebra 2 also. And there are students who have obviously, who go to college. I don't think Mr. Testa actually meant to say IEP students don't go to college. I mean, I have one in my family who went to college and is now a TA in this district. So we do want all of our kids to achieve whatever their goals are. And we have the supports in place. All of the support professionals, whether they're social workers, psychologists, OTs, PTs, speech, the teachers, classroom, the special ed teachers, and so on, to do it. Thanks.
Jacob Maduro, Warwick resident, proud product of the Warwick school system. I have a lot of comments about the importance of social emotional learning, but I'm already on the record on that, so I'm going to digress. The reason why I came up here is I wanted to thank you guys for taking a stand against the new ride requirements, particularly, and I'm not going to rehash everything you guys spot on, particularly the modern language requirement. A lot of people were talking about the CREOL and college and how we need to focus on both. Agree, but I'm going to take it from a different angle. What about the students who are learning English? What about the English language learner students? What about the students who are on IEPs and struggle just with English? Because what's going to happen is they're going to struggle more, and then there's going to be an increase in learned helplessness. And I can speak to this from experience. As someone who was on an IEP, because I'm dyslexic, I took Spanish. Complete disaster. Complete disaster. Failed it. Wasn't, and had learned helplessness for a period of time because of that. So, does that mean I couldn't go to college? No, there's protocols in place because it wasn't a high school requirement. And I still graduated at the top of my class at high school. I'm graduating with the highest honors this month from college. So what about those kids? Not at you, but to Ride. What about those kids? What about the kids who are struggling enough and might not need that, and the disabilities or the fact that they're learning English right now might be an added hindrance? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary Ann Walker, and this is Jackie Shalafo. We work at Warwick Neck School as building aides. Okay, I am a Warwick Neck resident. My kids came to school here all through Warwick schools, through Warwick Neck, Gorton when it was there. My daughter was the last class graduating at Vets as a high school, 2016. My boys are products of the transition between Pilgrim and Vets. And what we do is I've been working in the school district for 17 years. I worked with Mrs. Cousineau. I know Mrs. Dambrick. I worked with multiple people. I've seen Judy at our things at Warwick Neck School. What we do there is we're just not people who copy and laminate and things like that. We do the bus monitoring for the kids. The pandemic came about. I was a lunch aide, and I was a bus monitor for all these years with the Warwick School. When the pandemic came around, obviously we didn't have a job. So I worked someplace else for a couple months. I couldn't do it because it was a different kind of environment. The pandemic made us realize that we needed building aids, and this is what we do. We have major responsibilities in our school. We ensure that the school runs smoothly throughout the day with the help of our teachers and administration. To list some of the responsibilities we do, we're there for the bus arrivals, we work in the morning recess, bring kids to the classrooms when the teachers aren't available, help those in the classrooms, help the substitute teachers. As I said, we copy and laminate, we get work materials ready for the teachers, and then we go from building aids and we transition to lunch aids now during the day for our lunch. And then after lunch, we transition back to building aids. And we do dismissal of the buses. We help all the teachers, and we have some teacher assistants here and in our classrooms, and we help them a great deal. And me personally, I have this connection with one of our students that if he needs some help, because he's social, emotionally, or he's just having a bad day, we take them out. We just walk around for a couple minutes, not a big thing. They feel comfortable with us. I've been at Warwick Neck. That is my home school, and I love it there, and I don't want to leave there as a building aide. Even if we have proposals that we sent to Mrs. Dambrick not to shut us all down. The parents don't know that we're leaving. We had a colour-thon the other day at Gorton for our school to raise funds. Not one parent knew that their building aides would not be there next year. All the parents that I spoke to, and all the parents know me by name. I know every child in that school. We have almost 300 kids. We know those kids. And the parents love us, and we love them. And you're not going to find somebody to come in and do an hour and a half's work during the lunchtime and not care about these kids as much as we do. We're there, we help the nurse, we do everything. We bring the kids here, we help the teachers do everything. And we absolutely love our job, what we do. And if all possibility, we know there has to be cuts somewhere along the line for the school department, and we understand that. But just to cut us all out, and nobody came to ask us. Nobody, my question is, how did you come to this decision? Nobody came and asked us. There was no survey sent out to our children at our school, to parents, to just in general on our site, the Community of Schools of Warwick. You know, nobody came and asked us what we do, what our job situation is. And you're going to cut us down from working 32 and a half hours now that we work, from 8:30 to 3:30 that we work at Warwick Neck, and we're not going to have anything. And we don't know when your budget is going to be finalized, and then these people, you know, we don't have anything. And I mean, we deal with all the students, and I mean, we've worked with Mrs. Cousineau. We help them. We do recess outside. We do lunch outside. We do everything. We just got a grant from the Warwick Neck community to get $3,000 worth of recess recess equipment. We took the time, us building aides, we took the time and we put everything together. We do that every single day. We have things for our students to do. We help them with the lunch. Cam knows me, I've been working with her. I've been a lunch aide for all these years. I was a money counter and everything. But we just absolutely love it there. And if all possibility, we don't want to be cut from any kind of budget.
Hi, my name is Jackie Shalafo. I'm a Warwick resident my whole life, taxpayer and voter. My concern is losing our jobs. We are considered family at Warwick Neck Elementary. As our conversation on April 30th at the Color Run regarding building aids, we at Warwick Neck love our jobs and our family. We are a family there. We are individuals who help keep the students safe, and the students are familiar with us. They're very comfortable with us. We are here not only to help the students, but the teachers, principal, nurse, the secretary. We're always there for them. For instance, we are available to assist in the classrooms, so if the teacher can focus on small groups of certain tasks. If the nurse has a sick child in her office and is called to tend to another child, a building aide is called to stay with the sick child. We're always like a backup, we're always there for them. When teachers have special projects for their students to do, like a Mother's Day or Father's Day cards, the building aides often help the students with those, and then the secretary has an emergency. We can cover for the secretary, just even answering the phones, just being there to get the assist with the front door. Just miscellaneous stuff that a lot of people don't see, okay? We assist with morning and lunches, recess, and after-school dismissal. We are an important asset to the school, okay? We love our kids, and they love us, and every day they hug us, kiss us, Perhaps mostly importantly, we are here for the safety of the children, and we can be held accountable for a higher standard and availability that a parent, volunteer, or someone who only works 1.5 hour daily employee cannot. We would love for all of us to stay, even if 2 stay all day and 1 a half a day, or if 1 stays all day. Please consider the safety of the children, the students, when you make this decision. And again, Warwick Neck is a family. We're very close-knit. So, thank you. I hope you consider us. And there's a backup plan, too. Mary Ann and I, if we can't work the 8:30 to 3:30 to cover everything, our plan is come in at 8:30, help with the buses, okay, assist the children and stuff off the buses. And then we can stay and do copy, laminating, any other little projects or planning to help even the principal or the secretary. Then, when it comes to 11 o'clock, we prepare for lunches. So we can help with the lunches, lunch aid, and say we work 8:30 to 1. So 1 o'clock we would leave. And then our plan is to help bus monitoring and go there for 2 o'clock. So now we're doing building aid, lunch aid, and bus monitoring all in one. So that's something to consider, okay? Thank you.
I'm just curious why the miles for the kids to walk keeps going up every year. I mean, the last time this happened, I know parents were extremely upset, and unfortunately, parents didn't realize it happened until they got the notice saying that their kids were going to be walking further. I don't know if any of you guys have children, but my 2 little ones, that means that they would be required to walk to school if I couldn't bring them if I'm at work. Have you seen the way people drive in Warwick? Have you seen adults who get into accidents just trying to cross the street on Warwick Ave and West Shore Road? Imagine children trying to cross those streets. I mean, we're paying taxes for what? We're paying for these buses for what? For you guys to keep extending the miles for children to walk to school? Never mind the amount of pedophiles that we have in this area. So now we have to trust that our children are going to make it to school. And then, God forbid, if something happens to our children, we won't know until midday when they send an alert. This is acceptable? You want to talk about safety of the children? There's one thing right there. That's a safety issue. It's safety. And that's it.
Jeremy Langell, Ward 5. I just wanted to appreciate your comments and your conversation. It was very helpful to have additional context, trying to piece together, all these things when you're new here. So I really appreciate that conversation, and was glad to see that we're covering this material already. So thank you for that. I don't know what the outcome will be of your resolution. Right. And it's interesting because we're not from Rhode Island, but I grew up in a working class family, so we didn't even know how to fill out a FAFSA. So on the one hand, I can appreciate the frustration of requiring students to fill out a FAFSA. On the other hand, I didn't know how to do that, right? And so somebody found me, right, and threw me into a meeting. And so whatever the outcome, I hope that we can consider what kind of both and solutions we can find to some of these problems, right? Because there are a variety of students and a variety of paths, and sometimes attending a FAFSA meeting, for example, puts the spark into your mind that maybe you can, in fact, access X, Y, and Z. And I, too, grew up doing music and art, and so I appreciate your comments on protecting that. And also, there are other both-and thinking there, right? I mean, we have music and we have technology. One of the courses you can take is a music major, in many places a music technology class, right? So maybe there are ways to think about how to do some of those things. Again, I don't know the outcome, right, of these kinds of resolutions, but just, ways to think about how we might be able to move forward, regardless. But anyways, thank you. Thank you for your conversation. I really appreciate it.
Okay, on to our future meetings. Our special school committee meeting is Tuesday, May 24th. And our second monthly school committee meeting is Tuesday, June 7th. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a nice evening, everyone.